r/ask Reddit. What is the strangest thing you've seen someone do on public transport? We were riding the DAR trail in Dallas to the State Fair of Texas. There was a methed out crazy guy on there that kept staring at my 1-year-old son and repeating, in a low, creepy voice, "He will not take you, but he will take the child. He will not take you, but he will take the child." Needless to say, we were not happy. We just wanted funnel cakes, not threats of demonic kidnapping. My buddy licked about 2 feet of handrail on the 4 train. An elderly lady said she had been riding the train her entire life and that was hands down the most fucked up thing she ever saw. Saw a guy sitting in front of me on a double-decker bus masturbate. He wasn't even trying to hide, just straight up jerking it there and then. I have nightmares where I'm that guy. Like I'm mid-wank and realize I'm in public. Giant homeless woman started to bathe herself on the F train. She stripped down on a moderately full car and used 2-gallon jugs of spring water and a roll of paper towels. Little rivulets of homeless lady funk streaked across the floor as everyone raised their feet, wishing the train would come to a stop quickly. I saw an elderly lady pull out a can of Lysol, spray her armpits, then lift up her skirt and spray it between her legs. No reaction or acknowledgement for what she just did. I moved to the next car. I stayed in Istanbul for a month. During that time, I came to the conclusion that some women lean back to avoid harassment. My first encounter was very weird though. It was very crowded and there were only 2 other girls there. Without saying anything, they wiggled their way to me and both leaned their back on my back. Not gonna lie, I was quite spooked. Haven't experienced it anywhere else. Edit. To avoid further confusion, I want to add that I'm a girl. A woman on the London Tube brought 3 live ducks in harnesses onto the carriage. They were just stood there chilling and quacking away. This screams Piccadilly line. A guy was standing next to me with a model train, modeled after the V-Line trains in Victoria, Australia, that he just bought. Proceeded to strike up a conversation with me, telling me about how he was bitten by a dog, sued the owner, and used the money he got to buy the model. He even showed me both the bite wound and took the model out of its box to show me. A strange experience, but also quite interesting. I once saw an elderly guy pushing an old man in a wheelchair in the underground. The man in the wheelchair wore sunglasses, not a sunny day, and had staring eyes behind them. He also had his feet crossed in a way no old man would have. His hands were really pale and folded on his lap. I could not see him breathing. But the strangest thing was that the elderly man was holding the old man's head the whole time. Not gently, but really holding it with his 2 hands as if it would fall off. I still don't know if he was dead, a puppet or really sick. But it was somehow really scary. I saw a man take his shoes off and clip his nails on the train. Left his nasty nails all over the seat and floor once he got out. There is a special place in hell for people who leave their toenails lying around. 2 guys get on the same train carriage as me. I'm sitting behind them. It's mid-morning and the train is quite full on this Western Sydney line. Nonchalantly they pull out a kit consisting of syringes and spoon and cook up right there and then. They have their hit and then proceed to each spark up a smoke and not even acknowledge the other passengers. Someone must have called the police because a couple of stops later the cops met the train and come and pulled the guys off. I saw a young woman get on, early mid-20s, obliterated on drugs. She sat far back behind me so I didn't hear anything, and the next thing I know some musclehead is yelling for the bus driver to stop the bus and was manhandling an old mid-50s guy off the bus. Musclehead started yelling, "Get this creep off the bus, he's back there kissing a passed out girl." Although in 10 years taking the bus this is the most I've ever witnessed happen, so the bus is genuinely a safe place to be. Little did you know his biggest muscle was actually his heart. I live in Detroit and I saw a grown man pull a fish out of a bag and slap a girl with it. Honestly I was scared for my life. Nah, just a couple of Python fans. In Melbourne, I've seen a lot of people chroming on the train. Upfield line, represent, which is where people inhale paint cans or petrol, usually from a plastic or paper bag. One day on my way to uni, I saw a guy inhaling from a paper bag. Oh, another chroming dude, awesome. I dismissively thought to myself. Suddenly he pulls a sandwich out of bag and begins eating it, then throws the bag away. Motherfucker was just inhaling his sandwich. I love how a guy just pre-tasting his sandwich is considered weirder than people huffing paint. Dude across from me takes everything out of his backpack while kind of muttering to himself. I figure he's looking for something. He then proceeds to put the backpack on his head. Guess he needed to take a closer look. That last line sounded like a dad joke and it made me chuckle. Sniff petrol while yelling go away to no one. I think he was talking to you. If there was no one else there, he must be talking to you. A guy kept yelling no. Every time the bus stopped at a bus stop. He yelled yes. When the bus stopped at his stop. Somehow I find this one to be the funniest one I've read yet. Lol. I was on a sleeper train going from Hamburg to Rotterdam and woke up in the middle of the night to a 60-ish-year-old German lady violently masturbating on the bunk opposite while staring into my very soul. I just pretended to go back to sleep. I wasn't asleep. She knew. Bonus, in the morning when we arrived and were leaving the train she winked at me. I think she liked you. In Sydney, these twin brothers got on my bus. They were clearly homeless and pissed out of their brains. They both looked like Bob Ross. So one stood at one end of the bus and the other one at the other side. Both screaming he fucking ran like a rattlesnake in sync for a good 20 minutes. Public transport at its best. I saw a guy, about 15 years old, chubby and always wearing a light blue t-shirt, entering a bus line I was taking a few years ago, actually several times. When the bus stopped and the driver opened the door, he just stood there with his little suitcase, staring at me or another passenger and said, "Take my suitcase in." "No please no, can you just a straight order." I thought that he had some kind of disability and that he couldn't carry heavy objects, but once I grabbed his suitcase it was pretty light and, as I said, he was not looking like a weak guy. I expect everyone to be able to do this on his or her own. This happened several times and I have no explanation why this guy always had his little suitcase with him and why he always wanted others to carry it for basically 1 foot, and also why he was behaving this strangely. Kinda late, but it would have to be DDLG roleplay. Both were mid-30s and heavy set, dressed like middle school weebs, and the lady even had a pacifier. She kept asking her daddy repeatedly, baby voice and all, if they were at the park yet. That's not even the worst part of it. She would give her pacifier to her partner and he'd slob on it, heavily, and put it back in her mouth for her. And she would make this weird crooning noise. I'm shivering already just remembering. Tiny elderly Chinese woman was carrying a live chicken by the feet in one hand and a shopping bag in the other. Tried to get on a bus and the driver stopped her. They argue back and forth for a bit and finally she lets out an exasperated growl, breaks the neck of the chicken, stuffs it in the bag and shouts it groceries now. I live in China and this is more Chinese than anything I've seen here. Not strange but amazing. A girl with no arms below her elbows sat in front of me. She was carrying her lunch in a 7/11 plastic bag. She opened her bag, took out a sandwich, that kind that you get in 7/11, opened it and started eating it. Also she took out a juice box, put the straw in it and started drinking. She enjoyed half her sandwich before she noticed that her stop was coming. She wrapped the sandwich carefully, put the juice box and the sandwich in the plastic bag, stood up and left. All without help from anybody, without making a mess, carefully and gracefully, with no hands. Using what nature gave her and with no expression of self-pity or anything like that. She was the master of her life. Watched a guy pick up hair from a plastic bag and eat it. Police entered the train and arrested him, and it turned out to be his ex-girlfriend's hair. Edit, not arrested perhaps, but taken off the train and questioned. I reckoned it was an ex-girlfriend because it was female hair and the man was sobbing. A guy on a train, seesawing back and forth saying, "I will kill everyone, everyone. The streets will be flooded with blood. The day will come close, I will kill everyone. No mercy, no survivors, a feast for everyone. Even the innocent will die," and so on. Did he stick to his word? This really well-dressed lady in a business suit stood up and started taking out newspapers to put on the floor. She pulled her pants down, took a shit, wrap it up and casually stuff the soiled newspaper into her handbag like it was nothing. The bus driver was yelling at her the whole time and she didn't give a shit. Scanned her card and got off at the next stop. You have been visited by subscription doggo. Like and subscribe to make him happy.